Hello, everyone. This is Lorrie Hargis, and Ruth McGowan is with me from Ireland. And Ruth still doesn't have a picture; she's on her phone, and her connection still isn't great. So she'll be on here with us by audio. And we want to welcome all of you guys here today again with us for our Emotional Healing Month Super Power Flowers and how we can overcome certain fears. And today our topic is on how to overcome panic, terror, and fear. And I put in acute situations, but just as Ruth and I were talking, it's not just only for acute situations. So rock rose is this beautiful yellow flower. It is so gorgeous. And I would say the petals are kind of delicate. Would you say, Ruth?
Yeah, in fact, it reminds me of a buttercup.
Mm-hmm.
You know those little yellow flowers that you used to twirl under your chin as a child and say, "Do you like butter?"
Exactly.
Yeah,
it have the color of it, of butter too. Yeah, you're right.
It does. It does. When we were kids, we used to do that, and there would be like a slight reflection of the yellow onto your skin, but obviously we're so white here in Ireland, like we're nearly blue. But so that would be, of course, everybody, as soon as you put the flower under your chin, everybody, the yellow would appear on your skin, the little reflection. So, but yeah, it kind of reminds me like that. It's quite delicate,
Mm-hmm. And I think that we have fears and we have terrors and we experience panic. I have in my life, and I've seen accidents. I've been involved in helping people when they've had an accident, some very severe accidents. And it's interesting when people are in an emergency situation, what happens to them? Either a lot of people will freeze or they will become very upset, and they go into their own fears and their own panic and their own terror, and they're not able to help the other people. And
yeah, I think that the best way to kind of say to it is that, because there are various different remedies that you can use for fear and in certain situations. But the way to look at rock rose is that there's a reason it's in rescue remedy, which is the kind of cover-all for all these situations. But it's when you say it's like the freezing fear, that's exactly what it is. And the way that you could describe it is that it's like that punch to your gut, to your stomach, where you feel like you're winded. You just like your breath has actually been taken away by whatever situation you find yourself in, and you can't actually breathe to begin to react. That's really where the rock rose comes in, is that one. And so like in a maybe not so, I suppose, physically traumatic situation would be, have you ever woken from a nightmare? Where, for instance, you think you've fallen off a cliff, you've been in a car accident, whatever it is, but you wake in that moment, in that panic, and you're just like, oh, like you feel like your heart stopped, and then it starts again, and it starts, pumping and pumping and pumping really, really fast. That's where rock rose would be just an excellent, excellent remedy to take. So kids who wake up, screaming in the middle of the night for whatever reason, it would be excellent for them then.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because a lot of times in dreams, especially if we're being chased or attacked, we can even have this sense of the imbalance of rock rose, where we can't speak, we can't move, and the words don't come out because the person is going to attack us, but we can't scream, we can't yell for help. And I think it translates into our daily world too, with nightmares, with when you have a shock to your system, how you respond to it. And because when you can't respond, you're so frozen, you're stuck in it. And it can even be now, since we've all been through this COVID pandemic deal, how some people have retreated into their homes and they have the panic of getting outside.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I certainly know people who were very, very uncomfortable about going back outside after lockdowns and mixing with other people who actually, even now, I mean, here we are nearly 4 years on, and they would still be quite anxious about going into shopping malls or going to, like a football game or something where they know there's going to be a really big crowd. And that would be a perfect remedy, just to take 4 drops in your bottle of water and take it with you and sip throughout the day. It'll just keep everything sort of like at bay, keep control on the emotions, and bring everything back into balance again, is really what you're looking to do.
Yes. It gives you courage. That's what's so wonderful about rock rose, is that it gives you this courage. And when you look at the flower, it opens you up, that yellow, like you were saying, that bright yellow coming out. And how you were talking about when you do get the air knocked out of you, or when you're hit in your solar plexus, it could be emotionally that you've been hit in your solar plexus.
Absolutely. It could be some news. It could be, even it could be, for instance, something like where you've disclosed a secret, something you didn't want anybody else to know, and for some reason somebody repeats it back to you, and it can be an emotional shock where your whole sense of trust is gone. You just like, I can't believe this is actually happening, and you can't react because literally the wind has been knocked out of your sails.
Yes.
So it's a very good, very, very good remedy for something like that. And then just thinking physically as well, because the other day we were talking about how you can have physical manifestations whereby someone may not recognize that they've had, or that you're dealing, the person is dealing with a shock or whatever. And there are physical manifestations. Do you remember we were talking about how you could have maybe a sense of not being able to hear clearly, or you've got blurred kind of vision, or little speckles in your vision. But it just made me think as well, when I was sort of thinking about what we would talk about today, was we were saying that it doesn't necessarily have to be an instant reaction to a shock, whether it's a physical, emotional, whatever the shock is. It can be something that starts off very, very small, but because we don't face it and we don't deal with it, again, we were discussing this about how you have to go through it. You can't go around it. You can't go over it. You have to go through whatever situation you're dealing with. And if you don't, it snowballs. So you've got your, rolling stones don't gather no moss or whatever, but the opposite of that is, of course, it's like these stones, when they're rolling, they just keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So something that was maybe a very mild anxiety can develop into absolute fear and terror if not dealt with. So in the beginning, where a person could have used maybe red chestnut, clematis, mimulus, something like that, even aspen, they've let this situation develop so badly out of control that now they're in a position, they're actually in the negative state of rock rose is what they're in, so they have to use it. And then just another little point as well that I was thinking of is that rock rose is also the remedy to use in a shock to the system situation where it's from an external source. So say, for instance, you've gotten heat stroke or sunstroke, it would actually be the remedy to reach out and use.
Mm-hmm. Yes, because that is an acute situation where you have to,
it's physical shock.
Yeah. Yes, it's a shock, and you have to revitalize yourself. And when you've had sunstroke, I've had sunstroke before as a child, and it's quite traumatizing. And rock rose is absolutely perfect. And, it's interesting, talking about sunstroke, but yet this beautiful flower has the sunlight qualities. So it pulls back in those sunlight qualities that's been drawn out of you by the shock, the trauma, the fear. It brings that back in, especially the solar plexus, where the sun part of ourselves is located, in the chakras and the energy of our bodies. I think that's a really good point about the color of it and really what it represents and how we can look at flowers like that and understand their subtle energies and how they work with us on, like this flower, rock rose, on fear and terror and panic. I think it's the perfect one for people who work in emergency situations too, along with, because it's in risk.
First responders, absolutely. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Firemen, policemen, people, drive emergency workers, driving ambulances,
emergency department in the hospital. Yeah,
in the hospital, in the emergency, even the person who's taking the information, because people are in a panic, and then not to start panicking with them or to get upset with them. It keeps you in your body. It really keeps you grounded in here, so you don't go into that fear and panic. I've been in some situations where people, we had an accident by our house, and a woman came to our door, beating on our door, and we heard the accident. We woke up because we heard the accident, and she ran across the street and was beating on our door and needed to use the phone to dial 911. And so she did that. And then, but before she did, I said, is it okay? Would you like some rescue remedy? Which is what rock rose is in, right? And I said, it will help calm you, so that way you can speak on the phone, 911, you can speak on the phone to the family members that you're going to call, and it will relax you and help take this, trauma away. And she said, sure, I'll try it. So I gave her 4 drops under her tongue. She got on the phone, she made her calls, and she left the house. The next morning, my neighbor comes over, and he said he went to the accident. He woke up too, but he went to the accident. And he said, Lorrie, he said, she came back out of your house, and she said, I don't know what that woman gave me, but she said, I feel so calm now. I feel like I'm okay. And what had happened was, these young couples had, where we lived was a main road that came from the races on Saturday night, the car races. And what had happened was, she had was following behind her sister and her husband. And, people think they're racers after they come home from the races, right?
Of course.
Of course. And our house, there was a corner in front of our house. And he took that corner too fast, and they went into a big electric, what do you call it? Where it conducts electricity. One of those.
Like a pylon.
Yeah, a big one. It wasn't just, a big one. They hit that. And they were behind them, so they saw it. And so, of course, this, just scared her to death. And she was so panicked in the situation. And it was interesting. My neighbor came over the next day and told me that. She said, I'm really thankful that she gave that to me, because I feel so much calmer. So we can see how rock rose and rescue remedy can be so beneficial to us when we are in these situations. And right now, worldly, we have a lot of terror and panic and fear going on. And so I suggest that people either have rock rose or they have rescue remedy with them to really help them get through these types of situations, because we all experience it, in our lives in some form, whether it's acute, it's happening to us right now. And Ruth, I think you brought up a really great point about that something can happen to us and it's a shock, and we don't necessarily feel that it is, and we suppress it, and then it starts growing and manifesting into other things. And I can tell you, after having our business burned to the ground and our house being fire damaged and moving 3 times in 2 years, even though you've had this shock, you've been displaced, you know all of that, you don't understand the residual effects of it till years later. Do you sense it? Do you feel some of the things that you suppressed to just survive?
Yeah.
You don't realize that. So that's why when you have a situation like that, I mean, we used Rescue Remedy, we used our essential oils, but I don't really think we used them enough. We used them for the initial situation, but I think that we needed to continue because
you needed to do a proper full treatment.
Yeah, at least a good 3 months we should have been taking it, not just the first 7 days or the first 2 weeks or whatever. We really need to be taking it a longer period of time. And you think you're over it and you really aren't. I would say, even though everything worked out fine in the end, I would say the residual effects were 10 years. And
yes, if something as traumatic as your business burning down and your house nearly going with it, I mean, that's massive. That's huge.
Yes. And so I can't even imagine what people are going through right now in all the different situations we have, all the violent situations we have going on throughout the world. And also, we have much more gun violence, all these types of things. And so people they don't know they're afraid, but they are. Like you said.
I think it's because they're in a perpetual state of fear.
Yes.
Practically. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I think I would suggest everyone at least getting Rock Rose, or at least having Rescue Remedy in your home, and taking it, especially after if you still watching the news all the time, I would suggest taking some Rescue Remedy just to get through the news.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, if you have younger people in your house, or also conversely, if you have elderly people in your household or you're taking care of them on a regular basis, they can be extremely anxious, either end of the scale. Young, old, can be very anxious, and they not necessarily able to express what they're feeling for whatever reason, or they just don't want to discuss it or anything else. And so it's a great remedy to have on hand for, those little moments where you can sense their anxiety, you can sense they're fearful, or also, as we were talking about earlier, nightmares where they're, waking up and can't go back to sleep because they're afraid to go back to sleep. Things like that. Yeah. And remember as well, that those little things can snowball, and they can become quite as debilitating in a fear sense as something that is dramatic that happens to you as shock-wise.
Yes. I think that it's something that you should always have on hand when children have nightmares, or when you have nightmares, or you're, in our subconscious, we're trying to process the things that we're going through on a daily basis through our dreams. And I think that if you are going through something that's very challenging and you're having a lot of dreams that are waking you up, then a bottle of it next to your bed would be beneficial, and then you could either take 4 drops under your tongue, or put it in your water and see how that works for you, or your tea, or in your bath.
You can also just put it on your wrists.
Yep. Just stick it on your wrist. And remember, when you put things on your wrist, you have your main blood vessels in here in these areas. So it gets into your system very quickly when you do that. So especially in situations.
Yeah, and I think that's probably a good way to apply the remedies as well, particularly for children. I mean, depending, I mean, I know in the States there you can have the remedies either in alcohol or in glycerin. So if there's any question, any worry about using alcohol-based ones, if you don't have the glycerin one, then the best thing to do is just put it on the skin or put
Mm.
it into a cup of tea where the alcohol, the hot tea, the alcohol evaporates off.
Yes, I think that's a great, great point. Um, it's it's such a wonderful remedy to have, and it's such a opening. It opens you back up and gives you
Mm.
courage to get through the things, to get through your panic, to get through your fears, to get through the terror that you've been through. Um, and then just to help you, if you are, like we said, a frontline worker, just to help you get through that on a daily basis, that because you're dealing
Yeah,
with it all the time,
yeah,
and you're seeing other people in panic and fear and terror. And so by you being able to take this, it's really going to help you stay open, because when you work like that hard with people on a daily basis and you see so many things happening, it can harden you, because it's too much. It's too much to see 8 hours straight all this stuff, and you've got to protect yourself. Of course, your energy
yeah,
feels
because otherwise it's going to infect you too much.
it's going to affect you too much. And so the rock rose can help that let it go. Or if you have rescue remedy, that can really help it let it go too. And then, but yet it keeps you still open and your heart open to others, and you're still compassionate. You don't have to take it home with you, but you're still compassionate and you're present. I think that's really what I would like to say today, is you're really present for people. And when people are when they're in that situation and you're helping them, you need to be present for them, really present. You can't be, off here disassociated, because you're not going to be able to help them in a healthy way. Are you there still?
Oh, sorry. Yes, I didn't realize that was a question.
It's not really a question. I just thought you have to add to it.
Yeah, no. I mean, the last thought that I would give to everybody is that, if you need anything at all, as you quite rightly said, make sure you have a bottle of rescue remedy to hand, because there's a reason that each of those individual remedies, like rock rose, are contained in rescue remedy, and it's because they all have the same effect. They are all balancing and calming, and they bring everything back to base, so where you can actually get control of your emotions again, and get control of your fear, your anxiety, your panic, your terror, whatever it is. And that's why they're all in there. So as you said, if you haven't got rock rose as an individual, if you haven't got Star of Bethlehem, don't worry. Just get yourself a bottle of rescue remedy and have it to hand for all those little situations or big situations.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. Well, thank you, Ruth. And I want to remind all of you guys, if you're on our YouTube channel right now, please make sure that you subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you're in our groups, in our Facebook groups, please make comments and let us know how you like our Superpower Flower series. And this is our final week for doing this twice a week in the month of March, which is our emotional healing month. And we're going to be doing this once a week. Next month, we're going to continue on with our flower essences. We also want to invite you guys to our Common Sense community, where we are working with flower essences for the meridians. And our next one is going to be on how to balance the liver meridian with flower essences. And we're teaching you acupressure points and the flower essence that will work on those acupressure points. And we give you the flower, we tell you the flower essences, and we do it in class. So this is something that it's hands-on. We think that you really can learn more by doing the hands-on work and knowing, you're learning the meridians at the same time, and you're learning about flower essences. So we invite you to that. That's next Tuesday at 1 p.m. Eastern time. And that is April 2nd. We also, if you want to be a more advanced person in flower essences, we are offering our flower essence retreat, where you are going to learn and understand flowers and plants and their subtle energies, and what are the messages that they are offering us, the healing messages that Dr. Bach received, and how now we have flower essences from all over the world. And we're going to be teaching you how to tune into flowers, how to really understand them with their subtle energies, how to make a flower essence. We'll be meditating on them, how to use flower essences for different populations. And we're going to have organic foods and a lot of fun. That will be May 3rd, 4th, and 5th in Bakersfield, California at my house. And so you guys need to get signed up as soon as possible for that. We'll put the links below in all the information. We already put the link in this where we put our information up for the Common Sense community. But we'll stick that down in all of our groups and on our YouTube channel. We want to thank you. Thank you, Ruth, for being on with me. And Ruth, do you know what is next week's flower? I don't recall.
Let me just think. Hold on. What did we say we were going to do?
Quick here. And then also, we'd like to know if anybody, while she's doing that for us, we would like to know if anybody has used rock rose singly, and put it in the comments on our YouTube channel or in our Facebook groups, because we want to see how you're using it, how it's helped you. And by you sharing, you will help other people. They'll say, okay, I can use that now. I'll have that flower with me and I can use it, or I can grab Rescue Remedy and I know more now how to use it. It's interesting, when we talked about Star of Bethlehem 2 days ago on Tuesday, I had a friend send me a text last night and said, I just watched your recording. And she said, it was exactly what I needed. I went and I realized I had Rescue Remedy in my house. I went and I took drops and I am feeling much calmer. And it was so wonderful to hear that from her. So, make sure that you guys get rock rose, that you have Rescue Remedy always on hand. Keep a bottle in your purse. You can't believe the times I have had to use Rescue Remedy, not realizing that when I arrived somewhere, something was going to happen to myself or someone else, and how helpful it was. And then also, just having rock rose by itself. Ruth, do you know what we're going to talk about next week? Because I didn't look.
Yep. Sorry. Next week, we are going to be talking about pine.
Oh, we're going to be talking about pine next week. That will be is it on Tuesday or no, it's on Wednesday next week, isn't it? It's on Wednesday at 1 p.m. because Tuesday we have our Common Sense community. So that will be.
Exactly. It'll be Wednesday when we're discussing it live.
Okay. So next Wednesday, we will be discussing that live. That will be April 3rd. We will be on our YouTube channel and into these 2 Facebook groups. And that way you guys can learn more about pine, the shame and blame game. That's its superpower. It works on that, and we're going to discuss that with you. Also, we do want to remind you that our April forecast is coming out, and it's going to be on purification and protection with juniper essential oil and mountain pennyroyal flower essence. All right, you guys have a great weekend. And Ruth, thank you so much for being on again. And
you're welcome. You're welcome. And happy Easter to everybody.
Yes, happy Easter if you celebrate that holiday.
Whether you're celebrating it or not, you'll still have a nice weekend.
Exactly. All right, you guys take care. And don't forget your essentials. Use your common sense. Au revoir.
Slán.